Good evening. This is Late Edition. A very small number of startups are run by women. One estimate says about 9%. And with government launching the Stand Up India campaign on the 16th of January this year, there is the hope that entrepreneurship would take off in the country. But what does it take to increase the number of women entrepreneurs at the corporate level as well? At the household level, many women are already small entrepreneurs, supporting their homes with homemade products. But on International Women's Day, we'll discuss whether women have a greater role to play, a leadership role in economic development.
वो दिन दूर नहीं होगा कि जब विमेन एम्पावरमेंट तो होता ही होता चला जाएगा, लेकिन देश में विमेन डेवलपमेंट से आगे बढ़ करके विमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट की दिशा में देश आगे बढ़ेगा.
The Prime Minister has a vision of moving from women's development to women-led development. He was speaking at a gathering of women elected representatives. Leadership among women in all fields of life is taking place, but women often have to play the dual role of homemaker and professional, causing a double shift. This double shift has often led to women having to choose one over the other, leading to smaller numbers in the professional circle. Entrepreneurship too requires women to be as competitive as their male counterparts while carrying the extra load of being a homemaker. Just 9% of India's over 4,200 startups are run by women. Women, though, are playing greater roles in senior management of large companies and have also made a name for themselves in creative fields like cinema and art.
In my family, there was nobody who was a cinema, was something absurd. What is this? I said, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I did. But if you make up your mind in life, you know, I want to do this, you will find a way to do it.
Even though a large number of women study medicine and even surgery, many of them do not practice as a result of readjusting priorities in a male-dominated society. There is also the feeling among those who do practice that they have to keep proving themselves.
As a woman surgeon, yes, I understand there are struggles. First thing is people don't believe in you. People feel that you can be only a gynecologist, or maybe you can be only a doctor with stethoscope and nothing else you can do. A woman has got a struggle to show that she can perform.
There are many hurdles that confront working women in our society. Most of these stem from within the family. Many may need permission from someone, a husband, a father, sometimes even a son. Banks look at business models of women entrepreneurs, especially of those unmarried, with the unasked question, what will happen when the woman entrepreneur gets married or has a child? Women therefore have to beat numerous odds, and those who succeed do so despite the difficulties, most of them stemming from social conditioning, which includes not being taken seriously enough. With inputs from Tabassum Malik in Mumbai, Bureau Report, DD News.
And to discuss women's entrepreneurship, joining us in the studio, Preeti Malhotra. She's the Executive Director of Smart Global Group, which is a diversified conglomerate headquartered in Singapore with interests in mobility, finance, healthcare and entertainment. Pooja Bansal is the founder and CEO of MyHera.com, which is a B2B marketplace in the jewelry space. And Karuna Nandi is an advocate of the Supreme Court of India. Thank you very much, ladies, for being with us. We'll start with you, Preeti Malhotra. In the ecosystem that currently exists, would you say that there is a gender bias, that prevents women from, or makes women think twice before they can at least take up or become entrepreneurs?
Well, yes, definitely I have witnessed a gender bias, and it's obvious from the fact, in fact, I read a McKinsey report which said that women workforce at the entry level are 39%, but by the time they reach leadership roles, they're just 11%. So obviously there is a lot of gender bias, and I think it stems from the family to start with. So I think it's very important for parents to treat both the children equally, the sons and the daughters, and it's very important for them to educate their daughters, make them economically empowered, because I think that's when they can voice themselves. That becomes extremely important. And I think it's very important that at the leadership positions, we have more women. So whether in parliament or at the board or the top management, it's very important to have women as leaders at the top management positions for them to ensure that there is enough gender parity in the organization, there is enough women-friendly policies. And I think also importantly, women tend to compromise on their careers at some stage. So obviously when there are family pressures, when they have a child, there are family pressures. It's the woman who's supposed to take on the responsibility of the family, so they multitask. They work, they start the umbrella, plus they do their household work. So I think it's very important that men should understand, and women should ensure that they're not dominated by men. So the housework should be shared responsibility.
Ms. Bansal, there already are quite a few women in leadership roles. Even in the current government, and many ministries are headed by women. Even the Commerce Ministry is headed by women. We'll be discussing an issue which could be related to that. When there are enough role models, do we feel that we need more role models in a sense, for in our current environment, for women to be in leadership positions, for women to enter and look up to?
Yes, I think we do. We do need to increase even on the political levels, that we need more women out there, because I think they're more soft-hearted, first of all, to deal a situation, and secondly, they are definitely multitaskers. I see that when women come out with their brilliance that way, not in competition to men, they are wonderful. They're really wonderful because they really are considerate in many areas. Just that they're least partial, then they're more considerate. That's what I've seen in women, and when we say they're compromising in terms of, when we say that where they have to judge, because how much can they deliver, how much time can they take out from their homes to come out in this. Once they're out, I have seen they're out. And they make all their preparations ready, and then they're out. That's what I've seen in women,
Ms. Nandi, would you consider our society a little traditional? Because even in, let's say, in well-to-do families, assets are often not left to women. And as a result, perhaps they don't have the collateral to go to banks, get loans, set up businesses. Would you consider that a problem?
It's not, I would call it more patriarchal than traditional. It's true that there's patriarchy around the world, but patriarchy in our country is pretty strong. In terms of entrepreneurs, first to come to a couple of points that have been addressed. In terms of women in government, we have about 7% of parliament is women. So 7% is a pretty low number, Of course, there are impressive women like Nirmala Sitharaman, but let's be clear that it's a tiny, tiny minority. Also, 11% of women, no, I beg your pardon, it was 11%. 7% of women were given tickets, 11% won.
Yes.
In terms of entrepreneurship, there's a lot of talk about. So if you look at microfinance, for instance, poorer women entrepreneurs, there's a way in which we know that women pay back at a much higher rate, at a much higher rate. So women are seen to be good risks in that sense. Now the trouble, of course, is that unless there are huge barriers, because if you look, for instance, there was a recent study that came out, I think yesterday. And this is in the US, where the patriarchy, it exists, but it's less strong in some ways. And they found that women were, when sort of CVs were given blind, women were getting $6,000 less. Right? So now, even in terms of entrepreneurship, the way a woman entrepreneur is evaluated, there's a sort of inherent sexism at times in the mind of the person who's perceiving it. And also in terms of, you spoke of collateral, in terms of inheritance.
That's right.
Yes, in 2005, women's right to property was brought in a much stronger way, but at the same time, to claim that, there are huge barriers, right? And there's a sort of backlash in terms of violence. There is, and so in order to make that work, there are various other things that are required in terms of governmental support to make sure this happens. What does this mean? Make sure that the police is aware that this can happen, and therefore to support, because not 9 times out of 10, there are frequently people will say that this is a household matter, including domestic violence. So look, entrepreneurship is extremely important. And this is something that I think that the government can play a sort of important role in sort of just doing a lot more, because there's a lot of talk from government and not enough action.
Fair enough. There is the issue of of family, Ms. Malhotra. And well, family can act as a hindrance sometimes, but family can also be supportive, isn't it? For, let's say, a successful entrepreneur like yourself, did family play an important role?
I think they did. So fortunately I was brought up in a family where, you know, boys and girls are treated equally. So whether it was education, whether it was, you know, aspirations, whether it was, you know, taking up jobs, we were all treated equally. So I never faced such a problem. Though, you know, when you progress in your career, you realize that women are judged all the time. They have to work harder to prove themselves. As you just heard, you know, you're probably paid lesser, woman is paid lesser. So they're judged all the time. And that's sad, you know, but of course, I think if they get support from their family, at least the younger women, you find them very, very assertive and very, you know, once they become economically independent, they voice their opinions clearly. And as far as remuneration is concerned, you know, you hear some examples, for example, in the entertainment industry. For example, even in the entertainment industry, you heard artists getting, you know, lesser salary vis-a-vis the men. But then you have examples of, say, Kangana Ranaut or Deepika Padukone, you know, getting salaries equivalent to men. So they have stood up and they said, why not, you know, if men can get it, so can we, if you're, you know, working as much. Similarly, Saina Nehwal, she's an athlete, she's getting as much as a man does. So it's you find the younger women are not prepared to be victims to gender bias.
So
and
things are changing.
That makes a big difference. Things are changing.
Right.
And just one more point, you know, she took up, for example, I was talking about women being in top leadership positions.
Right.
So there is clear statistics that shows that if they are, you know, women, if there are a larger number of women directors and there's more diversity, it leads to better performance, leads to higher profitability, and in fact, the companies where there are a larger number of women have had better share prices on the market.
Okay, we'll discuss that.
This is exactly right.
Sure.
I've seen the same data.
Sure, we'll discuss that, but we need to take a short break. Do stay with us. You're watching Late Edition. We're discussing women's entrepreneurship.
बहुत बहुत बधाई हो, आपने अपने बच्चों को पोलियो से बचा लिया। लेकिन जब तक दुनिया में पोलियो का एक भी केस है, पोलियो का खतरा बना हुआ है। इसीलिए अब सरकार देश में पोलियो इंजेक्शन की शुरुआत कर रही है, ताकि आपके बच्चे को मिले डबल सुरक्षा। अब अपने 1 साल से छोटे बच्चे को टीकाकरण सत्र में पोलियो की तीसरी खुराक के साथ जरूर दिलवाएं पोलियो का इंजेक्शन। क्यों राधा, इससे क्या होगा पता है ना?
हाँ दीदी, पोलियो से डबल सुरक्षा हमेशा के लिए।
याद रहे, पोलियो की तीसरी खुराक के साथ जरूर दिलवाएं पोलियो का इंजेक्शन।
अधिक जानकारी के लिए अपने पास के स्वास्थ्य केंद्र, ANM या आशा दीदी से संपर्क करें।
मैं अमिताभ बच्चन आज आपके सामने वो कहने जा रहा हूं जो मैंने पहले कभी नहीं कहा। मैं एक रोगी, हेपेटाइटिस बी का रोगी। 1982 में कुली फिल्म की शूटिंग के दौरान मेरे साथ एक दुर्घटना हुई। ऑपरेशन करवाना पड़ा और मेरे शरीर में 60 बोतल खून चढ़ाया गया। खून का कोई एक सैंपल हेपेटाइटिस बी इन्फेक्टेड था, जो मेरे लिवर तक पहुंच गया। कई सालों बाद आम जांच के दौरान जब इसका पता चला, तो मुझे यह भी पता चला कि मेरा 1/4 लिवर ही बचा हुआ है। लेकिन सही इलाज के बाद आज मैं आपके सामने खड़ा हूं और काम कर रहा हूं। हेपेटाइटिस बी से बचने का पहला उपाय है शिशु के जन्म पर पहला टीका लगवाएं और पहले साल में 3 और नियमित टीके लगवाएं। ये आपका पहला कदम होना चाहिए। मुफ्त टीकाकरण के लिए अपने पास के स्वास्थ्य केंद्र जाएं और पूरी जानकारी लें। देखिए, ये जो हेपेटाइटिस बी है, इससे हम डरेंगे नहीं, लड़ेंगे।
किशोर अवस्था हम सब की जिंदगी का बहुत ही अहम पड़ाव होता है, जिसमें हम सब बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण शारीरिक और मानसिक बदलावों से गुजरते हैं। इस उम्र में खून की कमी यानी अनीमिया काफी आम है, जिसके कारण कमजोरी, चिड़चिड़ापन और थकान जैसी शिकायतें आती हैं। सप्ताह में एक बार IFA की नीली गोली लेना किशोर अवस्था में विकास के लिए सहायक होता है। ये नीली गोली शासकीय शालाओं, आंगनबाड़ी केंद्रों और शासकीय स्वास्थ्य संस्थाओं में निशुल्क मिलती है। मैं आशा करती हूँ कि आप सब किशोर और किशोरियां साप्ताहिक IFA की इस नीली गोली का सेवन जरूर करेंगे।
Welcome back. We are discussing women's entrepreneurship, and let's turn to Pooja Bansal, founder, CEO of myhira.com. Ms. Bansal, the fact is that, when bankers give their loans out, they're looking at return on investment. Well, none of the bankers are the heads of banks are women nowadays, so things should be easier, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And many angel investors, many of the venture capitalists, they're all men to a large extent. So is it, when you're looking at the complex mix of how to get funds, is it difficult?
Yeah, I have just read through this. There was this huge article in Economic Times day before yesterday on women who had gone for their angel investments, and I heard that what were the challenges they were facing by getting questioned that if they were married, then would they actually deliver time? If they were couples who were running the entire startup, then what if a divorce happens? If they had children, then what if they had to actually give too much time to their children rather than work?
So these questions are only asked of the women?
I've heard. I did not actually. I've still not faced. Still not faced because depends. Actually, I have not gone through those things because I am delivering the entire time to the work, and I know how I'm managing my children, and I'm very blessed with the family. My background, the whole background that I'm having right now. So, I just day before yesterday when I read that the challenges they actually felt, then I was actually also shivering because I was wondering that if I have to go through all these questions and they're going to ask me how I manage, will I be able to give that time? Will I be, would I be actually be 100% there for every meeting, for everything? Then that was this thing which was giving me shivers. Otherwise, I've still not faced.
Right, Ms. Nandi. The fact is that, you all have already quoted statistics which seem to suggest that, companies that are led by women are doing better, their prices are better, their management is better. But if all this data is probably put together in one place and, made clear, perhaps, or like for, let's say, the Women and Child Development Ministry has a one-stop crisis center for women who are suffering from problems. If you have a one-stop center for women who are wanting to be entrepreneurs who can go, and say, look at this kind of data and go ahead and make things easier, you were looking for ways the government could play a better role. What would you suggest are ways?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Except if you look at, there is a sort of emergency in terms of not just entrepreneurship, but women's participation in the workforce across the board, right? Because if you look at labor participation, for instance, it's shrinking. It's not growing, it's shrinking. And yet we don't have so Harvard just did a study on this, which was released yesterday, somebody, Dr. Rohini Pandit. And I think various government people were also invited to it. The trouble is this, that patriarchy is extremely persistent, right? When you speak of the one-stop crisis centers, for example, the Women and Child Development Ministry had proposed that they be in each district.
Right.
What in fact has happened is that they are in each state. So if there's somebody who's raped in Bulandshahr, they have to somehow make their way to Lucknow, to report the problem. So also in the, despite the shrinking workforce, GDP is going up, all sorts of, metrics of development are going up, but we see, we still don't have a department of, a department focusing on women in labor. So therefore, I do think, even if you look at various governmental promises, not this government, we speak of this government because it's in power now, but we see now an increase in the promises that are made with concern, with regard to women.
At least the issues are being identified and clarified to some extent.
Well, at least it's fine, but this is a problem that should have gone away, I think, before our generation even came. Since families were spoken of, I think that one important intervention is to make sure two things. One, that there is sufficient state-sponsored childcare. Right? Now, whether people trust it or not, it has to, once it starts, and particularly in poor as well as in middle class and rich areas. If you look at France, for instance, and workforce participation, that played a really, really massive role there. It's very good childcare that you get there. That's one thing. And the second thing is that, the point was brought up about women contributing at home and not getting the benefit of sort of startup income or shares in startups that they jointly run with their partners. And that brings us to a sort of related issue, which is that under the Hindu Marriage Act, very limited property is allowed women in cases of divorce, which I think is, which urgently needs to be amended, because it leads to at times misuse of 498A, even though there's a lot of violence related to dowry, at times there's misuse, right? So equal property, there was a bill that was proposed by the UPA, and maybe this government could take it forward, which is that equal property to be granted at the time of divorce.
Ms. Malhotra, what motivates you? What motivates you? Let me just ask that question. Motivates you to do your work? It's an example that you could set for other women who would be inspired by.
Oh, sure. So basically what motivates in the sense that I do not consider myself less than any other male, right? So obviously it's by nature, right? It's by nature. I'm perseverant. I'm committed to any responsibility that I take on. I've never shirked any responsibility in my life, and worked hard towards achieving it. And therefore, you go from pillar to post. So you kind of. I was ready to take on responsibilities as a leader. I never felt there was any difference between a male or a female, and probably that helped me reach where I was and where I am.
Ms. Bansal, there is an example given by an Entrepreneurial Development Institute of India, one of their directors who tried to study this subject, and he says that men are motivated to become entrepreneurs by the need to be super achievers, and he says that women are motivated by the desire for autonomy and independence. Would you agree with that?
No.
And why so?
I have always wanting to be an achiever.
Okay.
So I do not.
So you
I do not.
It's the same, right?
Yeah, I do not, because I have been very, very creative and very, very enterprising from day one of my work time, like 18 years back. At that time, my dad used to stop me that you go too fast. So I was always motivated to prove myself, achieve something bigger, and keep bigger visions. So at that time, there was nothing to prove my independence or something at that time. So I disagree what you're saying right now.
We're going to take another short break. Do stay with us. We are discussing women's entrepreneurship.
भारत में लगभग 3 करोड़ विकलांग जन हैं, किंतु हमारे सरकारी भवन, अस्पताल, विद्यालय विकलांग जनों के लिए सुगम्य नहीं है। यही हाल हमारे रेलवे स्टेशन, बस स्टॉप, बसों तथा रेलगाड़ियों का है। हमारी वेबसाइट्स यदि W3C सुगम्यता मापदंडों को पूरा नहीं करती, तो वे दृष्टिबाधित और श्रवण बाधित व्यक्तियों के लिए पूरी तरह उपयोगी नहीं है। आइए हम बाधा रहित वातावरण का निर्माण करें। सुगम्य भारत अभियान। देश का प्रत्येक विकलांगजन अन्य सामान्य व्यक्तियों के समान स्वावलंबी होकर सम्मान और गरिमा के साथ जीवन यापन करे। सुगम्य भारत, सशक्त भारत।
अस्पताल में गंदगी हो सकती है, कुछ छूना मत और बीमार पड़ जाओगी।
अरे दीदी, अब सब बदल रहा है।
इतनी साफ सफाई?
जी, हम सब ने मेहनत की है ताकि आपके इलाज में कोई कमी ना आए।
बदल रहा है, बदल रहे हैं। स्वास्थ्य केंद्र अब स्वच्छ हो रहे हैं और ये आपके ब्लॉक में भी संभव है। बस पहल करनी पड़ेगी, हमको और आपको भी। स्वच्छता का संकल्प करें, स्वास्थ्य केंद्र का कायाकल्प।
क्या बात है राशिद, फर्स्ट डिवीजन में पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन करने के बाद भी तुम उदास हो? लेकिन सर वो सोच रहे होगे कि खर्चा कहाँ से आएगा? हाँ, चिंता मत करो, अब जिंदगी की दौड़ में तुम जैसे स्टूडेंट्स को पीछे मुड़कर देखने की कोई जरूरत नहीं होगी, क्योंकि अब तुम्हारे साथ है मौलाना आजाद नेशनल फेलोशिप।
फेलोशिप हमारे लिए सर?
हाँ, तुम्हारे लिए और अल्पसंख्यक समुदाय के उन स्टूडेंट्स के लिए जिनकी सालाना पारिवारिक आय 2.5 लाख रुपए से कम है और जिन्होंने किसी भी सरकारी विश्वविद्यालय से जूनियर रिसर्च फेलोशिप या एमफिल के लिए आवेदन दिया है।
अधिक जानकारी के लिए लॉग इन करें www.minorityAffairs.gov.in पर या कॉल करें टोल फ्री नंबर 1800112001 पर। सबका साथ, सबका विकास।
NRI लड़के से शादी हुई तो फैमिली में सब बहुत खुश हुए, लेकिन विदेश पहुंचकर मालूम पड़ा कि मेरे हस्बैंड ने शादी के लिए सब झूठ बोला था। काम काज से लेकर प्रॉपर्टी तक के बारे में सब इन्फॉर्मेशन गलत थी। मेरे साथ उसका बर्ताव दिन पर दिन खराब होता गया, मारपीट, मेंटल टॉर्चर। और जब पता चला कि वो पहले से ही शादीशुदा है तो मैं बिल्कुल टूट गई। विदेश में रहते हुए उसके चंगुल से निकलना मेरे लिए मुश्किल था।
एनआरआई लड़के से शादी तय करने से पहले उसका एम्प्लॉयमेंट रिकॉर्ड, सोशल सिक्योरिटी नंबर, पासपोर्ट डिटेल्स और मैरिटल स्टेटस के बारे में अच्छी तरह से जान लेना बहुत ही जरूरी है। और ध्यान रखें, एनआरआई शादी को भारत में ही कानूनन दर्ज करवाएं। गलत एनआरआई शादी में फंस चुकी कोई भी महिला तुरंत मदद के लिए पुलिस और एम्बेसी में संपर्क कर सकती है। और साथ ही राष्ट्रीय महिला आयोग की वेबसाइट पर जाकर एनआरआई सेल में ऑनलाइन कंप्लेंट भी रजिस्टर कर सकती है।
Welcome back. We are discussing women's entrepreneurship, and let's turn to Karuna Nandi, Advocate Supreme Court of India. Ms. Nandi, we were discussing actually what motivates people, what motivates you all to be yourselves. If I could put that question to you, what motivates you?
Yeah, it is a difficult question, but what motivates me at work, I think, is one thing is winning on behalf of my clients. So that is actually a great motivator. I think it's also in terms of the sort of commercial work, it's sort of sharpening one's abilities, so that you bring a sort of razor sharp abilities to your work.
Right.
And in terms of the more pro bono public interest work or the policy work, I think I'm hugely motivated also by the greater good.
Okay.
So it's both things.
Right. So you wouldn't quite agree that it's Ms. Malhotra had said in her first answer that 39% of women enter the workforce, but only 11% reach the top. Why do you think that happens?
I think there are a number of things. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Ms. Malhotra spoke about childcare.
Okay.
And there are two things. One is that I think that fathers at the moment don't either have the opportunity to as much take care of the children, and don't have the willingness,
Okay.
So that's one thing. So I think that if paternity leave was also available in addition to maternity leave, family leave, why say paternity?
We seem to have run short of time, but very briefly, could you all just add a few points? Yes.
So basically Mark Zuckerberg is an example who took parental leave, right, to take off. And women are expected, when you're working in the corporate sector as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to work 24/7, right? You're supposed to network, you're supposed to do all that. So if you have to manage your housework and that, then it's difficult to reach a top position. So obviously you need that shared responsibility.
Yeah,
that's
you're successfully doing that?
Yes, I actually did twice. I had the breaks in my life. One was when I got married, the whole address had changed, and secondly when I had my first child. So that time, but there was probably I did not have to actually face that situation of going to the top level because I was always there.
Okay.
So I was the one who was handling leading the whole show.
Yes.
So I didn't have to do that, but my breaks were big when I had my first child. Yeah, that was a big break that I had.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you very much, ladies, for being with us on this show. Well, Indra Nui, Chanda Kochar, Naina Lal Kidwai, Kiran Majumdar Shaw and many others are examples of successful women who have excelled in their chosen fields, including entrepreneurship. Now, the ecosystem is one which supports innovation and technology, and women are not lagging behind there either. There are women who have promoted the online marketplace with trade and apparel in women's clothing, women's health, related issues, unique e-commerce models, even discount selling coupons. The mindset of our country too is changing, and with it the workplace landscape is also changing, and the entrepreneurship space is also changing. Thanks very much for watching. Namaskar.